first episode, and hopefully what will be a long series. The name of the series is My Trucking Life. Truth, Trucking, and Tribulations from the Trucker's Table. So, I want to get started by talking about how I first came to love trucking. When I was a young boy, I was raised by my grandparents. Just because my parents were so young, when they had me, they were not in a position really to raise a child. So my grandparents stepped in and were more than willing and wanting to do this, so they raised me. And my grandmother's brother-in-law, he drove a big truck. My uncle, my father's brother, he also drove a big truck. He drove a cab over bull hauler. And when he would come home from his trips out to New Mexico, he'd let me climb up in his truck and play around in it and everything. And so I fell in love with the truck. I've always loved trucking. The big trucks. That's what I always loved playing with when I was a kid. And it was just something about it I loved. It's hard to explain. But, so I learned at a very young age about trucking from my uncle. And, over the years, he's taught me a lot about it. And he's taught me some very valuable lessons. A lot of the lessons, believe it or not, one of them actually saved my life. So I'm very grateful for him for everything he's taught me. And I credit him for giving me the love of trucking, driving a big truck. But it isn't just big trucks. I mean, I love driving everything. Cars, trucks, motorcycles. If it's got an engine and a steering wheel, I love driving it. So that's one thing there also. I don't know if you could hear the background noise, Ducky in there drinking water. Anyway, so from a very young age I learned that. And my grandparents, they owned a country store. So I learned about business, and about earning money. You know, when I was a child, I actually worked in the store before I ever even started the first grade. I was in there stocking shelves, cleaning up, doing stuff like that, helping my grandparents, you know. And so I've always learned about hard work at a very young age. And then my grandparents had some health issues and had to give up the store when I was around 9, 10 years old. And my grandmother passed away when I was 10, and my grandfather, he had heart issues. So I kind of bounced around for a little while and ended up back with my grandfather. And me and him lived together until he passed away in 1987 when I was 17. But a year prior to that, when I was 16, and actually even a year prior to that, when I was 15, the day I turned 15, my grandfather took me to get my learner's permit so I could drive. And from the time I got that learner's permit, I drove. Whenever me and him went somewhere, I drove. He had a 1978 Ford Granada 2-door. This is a cool car. So anyway, and but the actual first vehicle I ever drove was his old 72 Chevy pickup truck. I don't know if you've ever heard the old saying, 3 on the tree. It was instead of having a stick shift on the floor, it was on the gear column, on the steering column. So that's where you change the gears, but you still had the clutch, brake, and gas pedal. So I learned to do all that at a very, very young age. I could barely see through the steering wheel over the dash, and we would drive around in the cow pastures. So he gave me a passion for driving, I think, my grandfather did, by letting me drive that truck at, oh man, how old was I? Like maybe 6, 7 years old, something like that. But I've always been big. I mean, I was born, I weighed 10 pounds, 10 ounces. I was a big boy. I came out, never looked back, kept going forward. So I've always been bigger than everybody else in my class from the time I started school to the time I graduated. And taller than most, bigger than most. And so it wasn't hard for me to do these things. Um, then, like I said, when I was 15, I got my learner's permit. My granddad let me do all the driving. Then when I was 16, I could drive without him in the car, but very seldom I did. But that summer that I turned 16 in April, and then that summer when we were out of school, the uncle that kind of put a passion of truck driving in my blood gave me my first trucking job. Driving a truck. Yes, driving a truck. Not an 18-wheeler. It was a straight body truck that anybody with a regular driver's license can drive. However, most 16-year-olds aren't hauling around thousands of pounds of watermelons and tomatoes and cantaloupes. But that's what we did. We started out that summer. I hope he doesn't mind me telling you all this, but he was flat broke. He had a van, and that was it, and like a little cargo van. And my granddad knew I was going to be working with him. So my granddad pulled me to the side and he said, "Hey, Sput, here's $5 in case you don't get a chance. He doesn't have any money. If you ought to get something to eat, you can buy you something to eat." I said, "Okay, Pa." So we get down to Quincy, Florida, and we go to a packing house outside of Quincy, a little town called Greensboro. And we go to a tomato packing house, and my uncle works out some kind of deal with the guy so we can go out to the cull chute where all the bad tomatoes go. And we dig through those as they're coming out. We get the best ones out. Well, what we had done was we took that $5 my granddaddy gave me, and we went and bought some boxes, like, I don't know how many boxes we bought, maybe 5 boxes or something like that. And we filled those boxes with tomatoes. We took them back into town. We sold them. We took that money. We bought more boxes. Went back, filled those, and sold them. And by the end of the day, of that same day that we started, we had a van full of tomatoes. They weren't grade A, but they were still decent tomatoes. And we had them loaded in the van, and boom, we left Florida, headed up to Columbus, Georgia, to the farmer's market. And had a little trouble on the way. Had a flat tire. Got that fixed. Actually, I think we had 2 flat tires. One just coming into Georgia, and then one just before we got to the market. But we finally made it there, and it was on from there. We sold those tomatoes, went back, got more, and within a couple of weeks, we had bought that straight body truck, and we were living high on the hog, making good money, produce during the summer. Watermelons and tomatoes mostly, and I was second in command more or less behind my uncle. So 16 years old, and I was driving back and forth from Florida to Columbus in that straight body truck, hauling tomatoes and watermelons and so on. So that was my first trucking job. 16 years old, working for my uncle, driving a more or less a produce truck, and hauling produce from down in Florida up to Columbus, Georgia. Quick funny story, and it's actually 100% true. I came down to a little town called Sneads, Florida, which is between Chattahoochee and Marianna. Sneads is the same little city where the scales, DOT scales on I-10 around mile marker 156, right in there is. Anyway, that's Sneads, between Sneads and Grand Ridge. So we come down to get a load of watermelons. And my uncle didn't give me enough money to give the man that we were getting the watermelons from. We were supposed to be getting them on consignment. So we get out there to the watermelon patch, and we're walking through, we're looking at the watermelons, we're talking to him and everything, me and another guy that works for my uncle. And the guy goes, "I need my money." And I'm like, "Well, he didn't give me the money for you this time. He said we're getting these on consignment or whatever." He got mad. He jumped in his truck and took off and left me and the other guy out there in the middle of that watermelon patch. And I thought he was just leaving, And I said, "Oh, well, we'll have to walk back to the truck." He gets to the end of the road. He slings the truck around and starts charging right at us in the truck. We had to dive out of the way to keep from getting hit, run over. So we get back to the truck, the keys are gone. He had stole the keys. And so we had to walk away, call some people, because back then we didn't have no cell phones. And we finally got somebody out there, and we was able to get the keys, I guess, back from him. The law had to go do it and everything. But yeah, that was my first trucking job and first near-death experience. So anyway, so we're almost up now to 18. So this is our first episode. I hope you like it. My trucking life. I told you it wasn't going to be simple. It was going to go way back. But anyway, my trucking life, truth, trucking, and tribulations from the trucker's table. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come back and watch our next episode when we have it here for you to upload on YouTube. And if you want to, go back and watch some of our other videos, and if you like this one. And if you like it, leave me a good comment, some thumbs up. I really would appreciate it. I love hearing feedback from people that watch my videos. So thank you so much. I hope you all have a great afternoon, great evening, great morning, whatever time it is you're watching this video. And we'll be talking to you again pretty soon.